Hello and welcome to our second episode of our coverage of the fourth greatest Australian LRG as voted by you to date, Sydney Survivor. It's a double episode this week. Anyone that tunes in live, much love to you because I'm running double episodes in a week. How much do you really love this content? Someone's tuned in, whoever you are, much love. Because we're rocketing through the content. We have 5 episodes to get through on Sydney Survivor. And we want to give it the justice it deserves, but we need to get through it before Canberra Season 3 drops. Very, very excited about that. It's coming at the end of this month. The cast reveals are coming out. If you're not checking them out, check them out on the Canberra page. It's all there to be viewed and checked out, and looking forward to our coverage of that coming up. Jesus, TK, like, calm down. Doing the bloody housekeeping. Jesus. Brothers, what can you do with them? He's completely put me off my vibe. Thank you. Oh, Jesus. Get out there and watch them and support it, and make sure you're a part of it. We're looking forward to our coverage. Next week, we'll have the tea party, and then I will have a special interview with Christy, and then the wrap-up and awards wrap-up chat with Eli and production. Get voting. We've already got plenty of votes in. Really interesting results coming out so far. So going to be really interesting how they come out. Make sure you get your vote in to have your influence. But without further ado, TK is demanding it. The people are demanding it. Daddy says we're here for Sam. That's what they all want. Let's bring him in. Welcome the winner of Sydney Survivor, Sam Green. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thanks for having me. So good to be here.
Well, these people in the comments couldn't wait 2 minutes for me to do the housekeeping. They're so desperate to hear your takes. Thomas is very excited.
Thanks,
Thomas, whose vote you'd lost. You'd lost his vote, and then apparently you won it back. Jesus, they're very excited for you. Well, I'm going to jump right to the end there because we're talking about this at the end of our coverage. Do you think you'd really lost Thomas's vote, or was he just trying to give you a bit of a layup?
Look, we spoke about it afterwards. To be honest, the tone of the question shocked me a lot.
It seemed very aggressive, like you had. You had actually lost the vote.
So I'm pretty sure. So I think he went into it going, I need to ruffle Sam up a little bit. He needs to fight for this. So I think he helped me do that. So I don't know exactly if his vote was lost on me or not, but I know that he did want to come across pretty strong so that I would rise to the occasion, which I appreciate in the end. In the moment, I was very shocked.
Well, it was very nice for him because in the real time, in the after event, it looks a bit ridiculous because who's going to be sitting at final 6 going, yeah, my plan is to vote out this person and this person. No one in their right mind would do that. So it looked like it was a silly question.
It was I mean, in the moment, I didn't realize that, but watching it back, I was definitely like, why would anyone say what their end game plan is at that point? So
TK's backing it up. It was a layout. Your bestie, Luke, who you voted out, could have won the game. He's also here. He's woken up. He's excited to see you. We've started late just so it would suit Luke's time schedule so he can support you once again as he graciously just hands you victory, graciously hands the excitement to see you here. And what a friend to have been made. We've jumped into the tribal, but we like to start at the start. So let's go all the way back to the start. You had, obviously, and we know now, run your own Brisbane Survivor before you went on Sydney. What was the time difference between those events?
It was a long time. So we filmed Brisbane in 2020. So it was sort of kept on the down low for a long time. And what we played in 2022, so it was like 2 and a bit years between us doing Brisbane and then me playing. And so my mentality was sort of, this is my last chance to play before Brisbane comes out. So I wanted to make the most of it if I could.
Well, when we did the Brisbane coverage, it was famously revealed that it took you forever to edit it and put it up. Was part of the delay a fear that you would be targeted if you were the host of another LRG, and therefore you wanted to make sure that the season was delayed until you were ready for that opportunity?
No, that wasn't like a motivation. I think it was a nice thing to have happened. But no, it definitely wasn't a motivation. There was lots of other little bits and pieces that went on behind the scenes that took Brisbane a while to go along. And so, yeah, I definitely benefited from it though in Sydney.
Well, how did you benefit? What was the benefit?
Well, I think it was, I mean, the fact that people didn't know who I was, because no one had really heard about Brisbane. No one really heard that Brisbane had filmed or was even coming. So it wasn't on anyone's radar or anything. And I didn't want to be seen as a person who knew the game a lot. I just wanted to be seen as a person who was ready to give it a crack and play. And like, I really like Survivor. But having run my own game, I think it definitely helped me, knowing a little bit about how a one-day game operates. But, and yeah, I guess, yeah, the Michelle factor, like Michelle being really concerned about people knowing who she was. I didn't have to worry about that because no one knew who I was.
Well, we did discuss on the coverage that we think Michelle was perhaps overestimating what people would think about her. And she says she has had that issue in online games. My view, though, with these LRGs, particularly the earlier on LRGs, and might be something that changes moving forward, but that everybody there is a super fan. Look, I know you get the occasional Shanes of the world that wander into the event and somehow provide this incredible. They're so good to watch because they're so unpredictable and unusual. But
Absolutely.
for the most part, everyone's a super fan, and it's sort of ridiculous to try and pretend that you're not.
Oh, definitely. And I didn't want to do that. Like, people knew that I liked Survivor, and that I think everyone knew that everyone had a good grasp of Survivor. Like, no one was being like, "Oh my gosh, like, what is this game? How do I do it?" And that's why Shane stuck out like a sore thumb, because it was like, this guy actually doesn't know, but we thought he was just pretending. Like, that was my perspective.
Shane was playing 4D chess, basically.
Like, literally. Like, I arrived with Shane. Not like we just like bumped into each other on the walk down. And so I was like, oh, cool. Like, this might be a connection. Like, this might be something that we could, like, hold on to. Like, you're just grasping at anything at the start of the game.
Yeah.
And so I was like, at breakfast when we could talk, I was like, hey, like, how's it going? Like, we arrived at the same time. Like, how weird's that? And then he's like, yeah. And like, it was just like nothing. Like, it was just like, didn't give me anything. I'm like, oh yeah, cool. I tried.
Because the reason I ask the questions is because I don't think that being on a host of an LRG, would give you any sort of necessary target of it. Look, we've seen it before, though somehow Liz managed to play Backyard without anyone knowing who she was, though Backyard had more of a unknown, the connections between all the shows weren't as strong. Kyle was obviously in the original Melbourne, but that was barely a thing. So they did play in that way, and they didn't get targeted. Though Melbourne 2 had been, as far as I'm aware, released at the time that Liz appeared in Backyard. So it would have been very possible for people to identify her and then identify her as a potential super fan. I think the biggest issue for you, Sam, if people had seen you in Brisbane, is not that you'd hosted a show and not that you'd created your own LRG, though I do believe what you say about the one-day game would be a huge advantage, and just that experience of what goes into that, and therefore what you can expect, as in short strat chats and things like that. But it was, if someone had seen you host, then I think you would have been in a lot of danger. I predicted, and everyone knew this was going to come up, I predicted you would win without any knowledge of the season before it started, purely based on the demeanor and the hosting I'd seen in a couple of episodes of Brisbane. When I made that prediction, were you like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I was literally like, because we were all like watching and listening to it. And as soon as like it was up to like, I think because you did the order, and I think it was me and Maddie at the end.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah. And so like it just kept going and going, and then it was me and Maddie at the end, and then you put Maddie up, and I'm like, oh man, he's actually picked it. That's so crap. But it was fun. But I think you're so right. Like, it's not necessarily about the host, but if people had seen who, like, my personality or my character before playing the game, that was the biggest thing. It wasn't necessarily the host aspect of it, but it was more if people had any recognition of anything to do with me, then maybe they'd put me in that box rather than being open to what we could do in this game.
Well, it is the personality, and that's what was shining through. There's a lot of view that you're perhaps the best host of the 5 or 7, if you include the double hosts going around. A lot of people have that view, and I think it is to do with your general demeanor, the way you're very personable, you seem approachable even through the screen, confident yet humble, all of these things. Now, obviously, we're saying, oh, you see that guy, that's going to be the sort of person that's in a great position to build social relationships and do well in the game. Well, whether people saw you in Brisbane or not, shouldn't that as something they identified upon meeting you in this game, or did you try and change your personality a little bit?
I didn't really try and change it necessarily. I think I definitely was. I just wanted to lean into it more the softer side of it, not necessarily. Because I think and in the pregame thing, you got really put off by the fact that I said leader. I remember that specifically, and you're like, leader. Oh no, it was Annabelle, I think, was put off by leader. That I put in my
on your video or whatever. Or
in the words and stuff. And because I generally do like jump into things and help try and like steer it or lead it or like, move it in a direction. And so I wanted to sit back on that, but lean in more to the social stuff of being just like with people. And so I think that's what I tried to, really focus in on rather than the being able to lead and guide things. Yeah.
Was there an original strategy going in to surround yourself with other strong players as shields, thinking that maybe as a strong social and strategic threat potentially you might be targeted? Because that ultimately what ended up being a huge part of getting you to the end.
Yeah, I think my strategy, to be honest, was suss out the situation when you get there. I didn't want to have anything specific going into it. I didn't want to be like, cool, these are the type of people I need to have. I thought it would be very handy to have a guy and a woman on either side of me that we could hopefully do something together. The
man was Luke, but which of your women was the woman? We're going to be naming names.
Yeah, we'll name it. And we've talked about it as a group, so this isn't revealing anything. It's not going to be shocked. But Danny was my my closest female in the game for sure. And I love that. Yeah, Danny was so close through the whole thing, and seeing her go, like I was absolutely gutted when she did. But even just her talking the other night of like she would have taken me to the end because she helped me a lot early on in the game. But
the paranoia, the unedited, unshowed, unaired paranoia that was left out on the cutting room floor to preserve your miraculous and clean winner edit. Tell us about some of these paranoia moments while we're talking about Danny.
Yeah, cool. Danny saw it all, and I look back on it now because I feel really bad because in that first vote, Danny was actually the other name, like not me. But my first interaction with like, hey guys, like, has anyone heard any names? Like, what's the go? Danny was actually the one to say to me, Sam. No, but here's the thing. Here's the. I hope this gives a bit of context to it because Danny was the one to say to me, she's like, oh yeah, your name got brought up, but in a good way.
In a good way, as in you're not someone that people want to keep.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So all I heard at that point was, yes, your name has been brought up. And I disregarded the second part. Like, but seeing it in the playback, like when episode 1 came out, it was literally Danny, Michelle, and Christy all standing in a circle. Christy says, oh, I think I heard Sam's name. And then all of them are like, no, we don't, like, that doesn't sit well with us. Like we feel good about Sam. And so it actually was that in a good way. But I was under the impression, like, you never want to hear your name. Like, I just didn't want to hear my name at all at that point. And so I only heard the first part, skipped the second part. And so it set me on a little bit of a spiral. But yeah.
Did that spiral have any influence on JT going out first?
Not really. To be honest, that was pretty clear as soon as Luke mentioned what he did about knowing JT, and it's probably and that he thinks it'd be best for us if it was JT. Then I was like, okay, like, yeah, that's good with me, and I trusted Luke, so yeah. That worked well.
Did he say he knew him, like they played Orgs? Did he say just because he knows him, or because he's seen him, maybe JT play a bit wild in Orgs, that's why he should go? Or is it just that Luke didn't want that connection?
Luke didn't say that it was anything to do with wild or anything. It was just more about the connection of, like, it would probably free him up, I think, a little bit to play a game that he wanted to play. And I think you saw in the confessional that he did first of all, that he was feeling pretty strong about that. That never came across as that strong to us, though, in real time. But
Leah was surprised to see JT go, because she, I think, also, was it Leah that also had the org connection there? Am I correct? Am I right? Wrong with that?
Yeah. So that was Leah, Luke, and JT had all played. So yeah.
One of Eli's orgs potentially, was it? Was that?
Yes, it was one of. Yeah.
So in that first vote, you get through. Oh, I should be jumping back. We've mentioned Christy. What was your reaction to seeing the Survivor royalty, the winner of Australian Survivor Season 1? Of course, we call it Season 1, but Sydney Survivors decided to retcon back in the Celebrity Survivor as something relevant. So maybe it's Season 3, if we're going by that count. But the winner of the New Gen Survivor, what was it like seeing her in the, like, what did you think was going on?
Yeah, she walked around the corner and I was just like, Christy Bennett, like, this is wild. First of all, I was like, she must be just here for like a cameo or something, like, as in
like a challenge, a welcome, something like that. Yeah.
But she walked in by herself, like, not surrounded by anyone, with a backpack, and I was just like, it took me a second, because I was like, okay, I know who she is. So let me tell her that I recognize her. So I was like, Christy, hi, how's it going? Like, I'm in front of Matt. So like, everyone knows Matt's face at that one. So I'm in front of Matt and I'm just like, hey, Christy, like, how's it going? And she comes around, does her thing, hugs everyone, like, wild stuff. And so as she's doing that, I'm like,
there was some decent hugs as well. They weren't like,
I think very, very good of her to do that. And I think it was very intentional. She's very good, because I think as soon as you have anything physical with someone, just even the slightest thing, it makes them a human. It makes them someone who is tangible and someone who you could possibly work with. And it wasn't someone, you wouldn't necessarily just think about her as the celebrity from the, the winner of the show.
I'll have to talk to her about whether that was a deliberate strategy. And I think you're right. I think it may have been. It's funny, because if anybody else did that at the start of an LRG, they'd be seen as the biggest weirdo.
Literally, like, it worked perfectly for her, though. Like, it was so good. But it changed my as soon as she was doing that, I changed from, oh my gosh, this is Christy Bennett playing this game, to, okay, this changes things completely. Like, this is a whole different game now.
Thomas says Christy's entrance glowed confidence and social prowess, and I believe it, and I believe there is a strategy to it. But I stand by Thomas. If you walked around hugging everyone like that, everyone would go, "What is with this weirdo who just hugged everybody like he hasn't met?" Like it, and there was probably about a man doing it and a woman doing it. But I still think if just some random woman did it at the beginning of an LRG, everyone would be like, "What the fuck? Like, get away from me!" Like,
for sure. Oh, absolutely.
I just met you. Don't come and, like, give me a big hug.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it as a strategy for everyone going into a game. Let's put it that way. But worked for Christy.
Yes.
Yeah,
I like what you say though about it humanizing her. It makes a lot.
Absolutely. It was so like, it was like she was there to play the game with us, and like, which is how people interacted with her and used her.
Did you want, when you didn't originally know what tribes you were going to be on? Did you want to be on a tribe with Christy? Did you see it as an advantage or a disadvantage? Or were you just like, man, if I get to be on a tribe with her, I get to hang out with her and maybe we could be besties after?
To be honest, I was so game focused. Like, it was wild, like at how, because I'm so competitive as a person. So yeah, I was pretty game focused. And so I thought, cool, I want, like, literally one of the first things I thought about her was I want her close, but close enough to know what's happening. Not so close that we're intertwined together. So yeah, I wanted her to be in close proximity to me. That would have been nice. And that's how it happened. So I was like really, really grateful to that.
I'll jump forward. Obviously, JT goes. You got your set alliance, and it's all feeling good. You see on the next one, Amanda go, and then there's the swap with the controversial number swap. Where do you sit on the my number should have put me on a different tribe line, like many of your cast?
Yeah, so I didn't. That was news to me about Danny's number, like from the other night. We hadn't ever spoken about that before, I don't feel. So unless I'm forgetting. So
I do recall some discussion about it on the real time podcast,
yeah,
but you might not have watched that episode, perhaps.
Yeah, possibly. But yeah, I know my number. I don't even remember my number, but it was definitely higher. Like I chose a random number and it was higher. So
Danny had a low number.
So, yes, I know. That's what I'm saying. So I'm like, yeah, it's like it's bizarre. I don't know what happened there, but yeah, I was shocked on Monday to hear that for some reason. Like I hadn't heard that before.
I feel it's a slot in, but we'll talk about
possibly. Possibly.
Coverage. So you got a new tribe, and it's every person's dream in a swap. Like either you're screwed or you're set to merge. You are set to merge. Must have been a huge relief.
Oh, it was actually incredible. I was actually very gutted. So it didn't super get shown, but I did feel really close to TK too. I would say like my top 4 coming into that were Danny, Luke, and TK. And so yeah, coming into that swap situation, I was gutted to see TK go because I feel like we were establishing some trust there. But yeah, obviously stoked with the people, and like even just the blue tribe in general, like all of those people were most of those people, were the people who I was really having strong connections with at the breakfast. So I was like stoked about the blue tribe. When we swapped, I was in the numbers, stoked about the whole situation.
Well, yada yada through a bit here because you just guys keep winning and Red have to deal with their people. We'll get to the double vote, which we talked about at some length at the prior coverage. Obviously, Blue came together very strongly there in both Christy assisting you from over the other side, and equally the new Blues who were ready to prove themselves. What part of that's probably the first point in the game where there was a need for some strong strategic thinking, at least at your side. Did you offer a lot of strategy there, or did you hold back and let somebody else run the ideas of how to manage that twist?
Yeah, the double vote was definitely, I would say, it sort of all clicked in Luke's head quite early, I'd say. So he vocalized it and we sort of pounced on it. So I would say he definitely was the one to lead that vote. But if I can go back just like a little bit for a second, just because I feel like the 4 of us had an agreement that we were really tight. Luke, Michelle, Danny, and I.
Very clear.
We had tagged Joseph as the closest to us, but what I feel like we did really well, and what I personally tried to really invest in, was talk about us as a group being the new Blue. Like, this is us now. Like, we were only with them for like a couple of votes. Like this is it. Like, this is where it happens, and this is what we're going.
You're with them for 1 vote, which was the first vote, which you had to do in like 10 minutes or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, so I was really trying to be vocal about that whenever we were all together, guys. Like, this is a good vibe. Like, this is really good. Like, I really wanted to try and connect us as a group so that the desire to flip or to change or to go somewhere else that wouldn't involve me in particular, but us, would be minimized if possible. And I feel like that came to fruition when it was the double vote, because Luke came up with this vote this split idea. I feel like it was him.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we all just were like, when we were set on the names, just before we went to tribal, I remember saying, guys, like, this is it. Like, we get to prove it right here that this is the group. Like, this is us moving forward. And we were obviously lucky with a few things that had happened at tribal, because we realized pretty quickly that we only had control over one person going. Realistically,
but you made it 2.
But we made it 2 because everyone stuck together, but also because of Ethan using his advantage. But we weren't to know that, so we were just like, let's control the one. Hopefully, it's 2 people that we want to go, but you can't really control anything else apart from that. So
what you didn't know on the other side is Christy was masterminding everyone to vote for Shane, even though everyone knew Shane had an idol, and that basically allowed for a bounce back and you to get a different outcome. Danny's giving the props to Luke as well, with Thomas putting up a big brain, presumably for Luke. I'll go back slightly on this, and obviously you did reel in Leah and Joseph with this new blue strong concept. Shane remained a full lone wolf. He wasn't interested and he wasn't buying what you were selling. But he wasn't trying to do anything else except his own thing anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
I think you got a bit lucky with the way your blue group were together, and the personalities gelled really well, and I think provided a real home. And even though the Reds got along and for all intents and purposes voted together on their one tribal, they just seemed like a real disparate group of pairs and trios, and not like a one thing. So it made sense to me that people like Leah and Joseph were looking for a new home that you're offering.
Yeah.
What were you telling them, though, about your former blue comrades, a TK, a Lizzie? Obviously, they went pretty quickly, so maybe you could say, oh, yeah, I liked TK, but he's gone now. But what about Christy? She was still there. How are you selling the Christy of it all to the Reds and leaving her out, even though, for all intents and purposes, she was still the number 5 to you guys?
To be honest, from my memory, they were too busy talking about themselves to like worry about that. Like, I think realistically, like I remember thinking when Leah joined our tribe, she was just spilling so much information about everyone and like the things and all that sort of stuff. And I found that so interesting. Like, I was like, wow, like, thank you. And so it made me question it because she was so willing to do it. I was like, oh, maybe she's just like pulling our leg a little bit. Like, maybe it's not. Maybe this is all made up. And so, I just remember Leah giving us a lot of information. I remember Joseph sort of backing it up, but not sort of being as forthcoming with anything. And then Shane was just, talking about other things. Like, I just was like, socially, maybe we just need to connect. Strategically, maybe we're not going to do that. And so I don't remember talking about Christy to them ever. Like, really.
Okay. Well, wasn't in the edit. It makes sense. Did Leah self-own strategically removing Amanda as well in her brain dump of the game? She ruled that, or did she leave that part out?
I think she might have left that part out. I don't remember it being solely, like, I don't remember her taking ownership of that in a bold way. I do remember, it's saying that it was a bit crazy or something like that. Like, it was very, kept on the down low.
Well, part of what we discussed earlier this week is, and having myself met Leah in real life, is she was clearly playing up a bit of a ditzy, crazy girl that, like, maybe lives inside her, but that's not generally who she is.
That is not her. Like,
there's definitely a strategy there.
Oh, definitely. Like, knowing her now, it's like she's a very intelligent woman who is very strong and powerful, and I love her to bits. But in the game, it felt so jarring to what we had going on with Blue. But
So there's a lot of love for Leah. Danny is echoing your sentiments. Yeah, I've met her. She's definitely very smart. She's not the person that I saw on my television screen. I just wonder if that was a strategy, or that's just what came out of her in the pressure environment in a video game. Like, this is the thing. Like, sometimes you can have a plan to be something, and sometimes just a part of you comes out that you don't expect. I didn't expect to be such a jerk. Like, not that bad, but the people around Caitlin up against the wall and like I'm telling her that like she doesn't do this and I won't vote for her. Like, I never meant to be that, but it's obviously like a little bit in there because I'm feeling the pressure. I don't have the numbers. I don't know what to do. Like, and that's Leah's situation here. She doesn't have the numbers. You guys seem tight. How does she penetrate this?
Absolutely. I'd say that's like definitely a big part of it because I feel, she knew she was up against it numbers wise. And so maybe she thought if she was like giving all this information or chatting a lot that it would break something down or change things up. And
If we go into then the next vote, we had a great like alternate reality what if chat about the next vote where I don't know if that had been discussed previously, where our concept was that Shane has watched enough Survivor to understand what to do with his pile of advantages, that he uses his extra vote to make a 4-4 split, plays the idol on himself, tells Joseph and Leah he's doing all of this. I would think that based on the smart intelligence and Survivor knowledge that though Leah and Joseph have, that if they were presented with that option, they probably wouldn't stay New Blue strong because this is an incredible move they get to be a part of and they can really break the game open. So in that scenario where Shane has perfectly played all of his advantages, we have a scenario where it would be going to rocks for Danny on basically a 25% chance that you would go, or a 75% chance that one of your blues would go, you, Michelle, or Luke. I think it was pretty clear in the chat that you would not be going to rocks for Danny in this circumstance.
Again, I think that would be like a head and a heart thing. My heart would say I would love to keep Danny, but my head would be like, I probably wouldn't do it. And I think she'd do it for us too. So it's like I feel like it wasn't going to happen like that.
It'd be very difficult going to rocks, in a 50-50 or where there's like you're taking a punt, one in whatever, but like 3 and 4, someone from your alliance, 1 in 4, like that they,
absolutely. I feel like it just wouldn't, it just wouldn't have been a logical option for us. Fun, like it could have been fun to watch. I get it.
It would have been good. It would have been very good. Well, it was one out from the merge as well. When you won out from the merge, it's even harder. Because everyone's trying to make that merge. And you do make the merge. You're in there. Now, controversial opinions abound still to this day on the paired destinies twist. I'm a fan. Obviously, it worked out for you. But what's your view on it as a twist?
I don't love it. But it did work out for us, so I'll take it. But when I was the first to pick, I think, out of the bag, possibly. And I think Luke was last, or he was first and I was last, or whatever. But we were at opposite ends to each other, and we picked the same thing. As soon as he picked that, I was like, shit. Like, we need to win this or we're gone. Like, I knew it. Like, we had to. I mean, I don't love the twist. I don't love it there, especially. Like, in the moment, I feel like all I'm worried about is what's happening in front of me. So I'm so in the game. I'm not thinking about all this like other things of like, is it fair? Is it not? I'm playing Survivor. So whatever gets thrown at me, I just have to adapt to. But in general, I don't think I love the twist.
It does work out for you, though. As you said, it could have gone very wrong. A lot of discussion. Do you believe that if you and Luke weren't immune there, the vote ends up coming around on you guys?
Yeah, like I do feel like that's the easiest thing to do. I think that would be on top of people's minds, but we play it differently than two. Like, obviously we work out what's best for us and who to target, depending on who has immunity. Like if it's Maddie and Ethan, then we play it very differently. And so, it's definitely the easiest thing to do, but I'm hopeful that with Luke and my strategy, and with our ability to talk to people, maybe we could have changed some minds.
Maybe, but what would you have done in a scenario? Like, no matter what, Maddie and Ethan are immune. Maddie and Ethan are immune, and Joseph and Shane are immune.
Yeah.
So how would the two of you convince anyone that look? You're probably not convincing anyone to do Michelle and Jazz. Like, I just can't see anyone going for it. So you got to convince them to do Danny and Christy. Ethan and Matt wouldn't vote that way.
Yep.
So you'd probably need to be convincing Michelle and Danny to turf Christy at that point, I suppose. No, not Danny. Well, because you lose Danny. So this is the situation.
Yeah,
you just gonna,
it'd be Michelle and Jazz that we'd have to flip, right? Like, is that?
Or would you be throwing them under the bus, Michelle and Jazz?
Yeah, like it depends on the way the conversation would go. Again, I feel like they were the safest pair out of everyone because there's one of each, and you don't necessarily want to break that. Like, you'd rather go for a full pair. So yeah, I don't know. Look, it's likely us, right? But I'm hopeful that maybe we could do something.
The opportunity to get rid of a challenge threat, a couple of very strong social threats that are a type, like, it's too good for everyone to pass up, right? Like,
for sure. And by that point, Luke was already the challenge guy. So
yeah.
It's like I knew that I was probably toast if we didn't win.
Well, you were lucky, though, that the challenge was completely misperformed. The great Puzzlegate incident of Sydney Survivor. Did you know in the real time that the puzzle had potentially not been completed correctly, or was it only when we got to the rewatch that you realized this was such a thing?
No, like, as in, I don't remember even going up there to look at it. He just said we won, and I was like, sick, we won. Like, that's awesome. Like, give me the necklace, sort of thing. But I'm going to back Luke up from his interview with you because I was there with him. Like, we were talking about this together, like in real time of like, cool, let's like clarify the details. And I don't know if everyone didn't hear. I don't know. I don't remember the specifics of like if it was announced to everyone or just us or like what happened. We asked, does it need to look like that or can we just put the pieces in together? And like Luke said, like 85% sure that we got told just put the pieces in.
But not by Eli?
Yeah, by Eli.
Then why doesn't Eli use that to defend himself?
Yeah, I don't know. So, like, as in either way, there's a discrepancy, sorry. There's a discrepancy between what we know and what other people thought the challenge was. So that's where the conflict occurred, because we treated it like get the pieces in. Maddie obviously treated like he needed to go back and complete it exactly how it needed to look. So that's where that's where the thing happened.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Interesting. Are you just consider yourself a very good thrower or a good tosser, as Shane liked to refer to himself earlier? You think if I was picking tribes and team members for this challenge, I'd probably have Luke throwing balls and you doing a puzzle. Or were you like, no, I can throw a ball at anything. I'm the best at it. How did that come about, that decision?
Yeah, we spoke about it and I am pretty sporty too. Like, I'm not the best at anything and I'm not as good as Luke. Let's put it that way. But you'd often see, like, I was often coming like second in things or like, I was around there, but like, I'm just not the best.
Apparently you're a shooter in netball.
I do play netball and I am a shooter. Yes, correct. And I played like lots of different sports. So I was confident that either of us could have done that part. I think Luke was like, well, cool, I'll do the puzzle then. And that's just how it happened.
So Christy and Danny go, do you see this as a significant detriment, a significant positive, or not? It's not going to impact you either way?
No, I was pretty gutted, to be honest. That was insulation that I now don't have. Like one of my closest allies in Danny is gone. And also the person who I saw as giving as a buffer around me now gone as well. So, I was pretty gutted at that point. And so I knew straight after, because I think that was the red light, green light challenge that we went into after that, I'm pretty sure. So I knew after that, with Luke winning that, I turn to him and I say, like, we need to work here, man. Like this, like we need to really put some things in place.
We need to work for Sam. Is that what you're saying? Sam is
Yeah,
in trouble. We need to work. You and I need to work for Sam because I'm in trouble here.
pretty much. But like,
Yeah.
but it was also setting us up. Like whatever we did next really did determine both of our spots in the game, I felt at that point. So, and we had I think it was just before that challenge, we'd always felt tight with each other through the early parts of the game, but we had a really intense conversation that lasted 10 seconds. And we're just like, I just said to him, Luke, I am with you. I'm not voting for you. Like, I'm with you. I trust you. And he's like, Sam, I was just about to come and like remind you that I'm the same. Like, we're in this together. And that's all we needed from that point. And we were like tight as. So, yeah, having that in mind, I knew that he'd have my back leading into the next part. And he definitely did for the strategy after the red light, green light.
And what were the moves that you put in there? They're probably the game-winning moves. You've talked a bit about basically your attempts to build relationships with the old red at this point would be what you took us through some of those moves.
Yeah, this is where I feel set us up for the end game. Absolutely at this point. Looking back on it now, losing Danny and Christy at this point freed me. I'll speak for myself. I can't speak for Luke. Freed me up absolutely to be able to look further abroad, to work out where's everything going to go and where are the connections like actually lying from this point. So yeah, this was also the point where I solidified something with Jazz.
Yes.
Final
piece of the puzzle.
Final piece of the puzzle. I wasn't going to say it, but you brought it up. So, yes. So Jazz and I had a conversation earlier on really quickly. And yeah, I just felt good about her. Like, I just felt like there was something there, and I was hoping she'd feel the same. And so when we reconnected, when she came back into the game, there's no doubt that I felt more, what's the word? I felt a bit more out in the open than what I had previously because of losing Danny and Christy. So I wanted to bring in more insulation, and Jazz was one of those. I didn't feel like she was necessarily as connected as what she was elsewhere. Turns out she actually had a pretty good connection with Ethan and Maddie. But yeah, I was managed to build something. And again, I think this conversation with her happened off camera, hence why it's not.
It's not in there, yeah.
Yeah, it's not in the edit. But again, we sort of said, let's go. Like, let's keep this on the down low. But if you get information from that side, I'll get information from this side, and we'll work out what we do together. And
that's the other relationship you then wanted to do, which was with Maddie and Ethan as a pair. You did Jazz by yourself, but you and Luke went to Matt and Ethan, and they absolutely buy that this is legitimate. And I don't think they have any other option really to buy other than it's legitimate. And it does seem objectively could be real. It makes sense for you and Luke. Was at the time you made it, there at least some view that it could be an option, that it was actually somewhat legitimate?
Yeah, no, definitely could have been an option. Like, as in, I wanted options. Like, I just wanted, and I think that was the vote that I saw. Cool, there's options every which way, and we just need to like play it well. And I think we could make it to the end. Yeah, it was definitely an option to go with Maddie and Ethan, but I feel like Luke was more into that plan than what I was. So he really solidified it with them. He was the one to like actually broach it with them first. Like that conversation with Maddie was the first time that it had sort of been actually set. While he was doing that, I was setting something for us and everyone else. So Michelle, Joseph, Shane, Jazz, I was setting something there for us. And so we could really choose which way we wanted to go. Also, I might mention at this point, I realize I never talk about Michelle that often when it comes to my game, but I think it's just because Michelle and I were always there together. Like it was always, she was so close in proximity, and I did actually really trust her. All these other things that I'm talking about are other decisions I made apart from Michelle, if that makes sense. So it was like, I always feel bad because I'm like, oh, Michelle was actually like an integral part of like my game. And I think I was an integral part of her game. We were so connected, but yeah, it's just one of those things.
On this vote, is this vote Joseph or is this vote Shane?
This one's Joseph.
Yeah. So it was that you're hooking up with everyone, you're building connections with everyone, but poor Joseph, he's under the bus. Is that because? And it felt like you had Michelle's here and she's very happy with what you just said.
I love Michelle.
You had a relationship with Joseph. It went back a while, but he just wasn't part of the plan here. He had to go, or he just was. You had relationships with everyone now, and well, other than Shane, obviously Shane was this big, scary thing because of all of his advantages all the time. Why is it Joseph that's just see you later here?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. I think early on, back to our swap tribe, everyone in blue really wanted Joseph. And so I went along with them wanting Joseph. And I was like, yep, cool, let's own this together. Did I feel like Joseph and I had the closest like connection individually? Like, probably not. And so I saw the benefits of having Ethan and Maddie as a social threat, Ethan as a loud, like erratic game player. That would insulate us more, like Luke and I more than that side of things. Yeah. So I think it was just a decision to be like, it was actually in the moment, it was really hard for me to do, to vote against Joseph because, again, that's a heart thing, but my head was saying this makes more sense. So let's go with that one.
And despite all the love you just expressed for Michelle, you decide to leave her out of this vote. That ends up being quite a pivotal distinction in the final tribal council. And I think you like to call back on it at the tribal council for that differentiation. But at the time, was that the intent, or were you leaving her out of the vote for another reason?
From memory, Michelle was more keen to get Ethan out, being the erratic player that he was, being more of an unknown quantity. Which makes total sense. But
did you tell her, no, I'm voting Joseph? I don't think you did based on the reaction.
No, I didn't.
So you left her out of it.
Yeah, I did. And I, to be honest, I can't remember if that was a result of time, of lack of time to get to circle back to her, or whether that was, a more intentional thing on my behalf. Like that whole round of voting, I felt like I was just like a bull at a gate. Like, just like, I was like, bam, 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 I just need to like try and do things, but trying to remain calm.
Did you feel very paranoid in that particular round? Did you feel like you were perhaps exposed there on that one?
Yeah, way more exposed than I was previously. And so, that's why I say to Luke, like, we need to get to work, man. Like, we need to do this. Like, I felt like this was the most important vote. And if we didn't get this right, we'd be in trouble. And I probably stand by that.
And I think it does end up being the most important vote, the way that you then set yourself up and use it as a differentiation tool in final tribal council. On that, you come back after the vote, and Michelle is very displeased with having been left out of this vote. It is a form of betrayal. Like, obviously, there's one thing if you blindside your ally or you vote for your ally, and leaving them out of the vote is not the same, but it's still a level of betrayal when you think there is trust and you're confiding with each other about your intent and your plans, and you leave them out and they end up voting the wrong way accordingly. Yeah. You guys managed to reel her back in relatively easily. And in the chat, the big chat we had, there's a lot of discussion about that's just, that Sam could be saying the most horrible things to you about yourself, and you just taking it, Sam. Your personality is just able to bend those gaps, your style, your vibe, your way of presenting. Because in the end of the day, in those scenarios, people are probably emotional and they're not probably listening to words so much. And because sometimes people can say all the right words and you go, why don't care? I'm still pissed off. But it's the way that they're able to, in a feeling sense, bring you back. Yeah. Again, deliberate move or just, smooth Sam who he is?
I feel like there's a couple of things. I feel like that conversation was very cool to see play out. It felt really positive in the moment, but how it played out, I feel like was really great. I think everyone said their piece on like what they needed to. And I knew in that moment that it's not only how you say it. I think that is important because how people feel is very important, but also in order for Michelle to see our perspective, she needed to see results. And so I knew from that point, the results needed to speak louder than how she would feel. And so I just was really intentional about that from that point, making sure that we could mend it by the results, not just that conversation.
She says that she wasn't actually that bothered. So perhaps that's also a factor.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. That's cool, Michelle.
So the next vote then is Shane. Who does Shane vote for in this vote? Can you recall? I don't have notes for this season. So
yeah. He voted for Luke, didn't he? Luke. Yeah, they voted for Luke. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. This was the one I think that we did the challenge at Tribal Council.
Yes, it's the have you been paying attention, and Jazz is immune. Would have been interesting if Shane played his idol there. That's right. We're talking about how he's always got the right reads, but no one doesn't have the ability to actually pull it off socially.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's, you're probably not thinking he's got another idol. It makes sense to get rid of him there. And then you really are in a great position at the final 6. You've got yourself and Luke in the middle. You've got Jazz and Michelle on one side. You've got Ethan and Maddie on the other. And who, yes, Danny, he played the extra vote, so Luke got 2 votes. That's correct. Thank you.
Yeah, that's right.
So you've got votes either side. Here you actually have to make a decision, because whatever decision that's you're locking yourself in. There's always room to flex around it again if you need to or want to, but you are making a call. Did Luke want to keep the boys more? You said that he started with them or making that happen. Was he like, nah, it's Maddie to go, or was it you or Michelle or someone else that was driving the Maddie's too fucking nice and we can't let him be at the end?
Yeah, look, from my perspective, other people might say differently. From my perspective, I wanted Maddie out actually. I had brought his name up for the Shane vote. And you saw in Tribal Council that the first conversation I said to Michelle and Luke was, let's go Maddie. And they were like, cool. Then we sort of went around and conversations happened, and Jazz and I made a decision. Jazz actually, this is a move that Jazz needed to really claim. At Final Tribal, I think she made me change my mind. Yeah. So
to take out Shane instead of Maddie, because she had relationships with Maddie and with Ethan.
With them, and she was like, "We'll do. If you do this now, we'll do Maddie next." And I was like, great, perfect." So to me, I was like, cool, I'll compromise this one. That's really good. And then as long as it happens next. So I feel like I was on the Maddie train, and Matt is so nice. Like, he's so nice, and I love him as a human being. But from the very start of the game, Matt accidentally told me that, and this wasn't the complete story, but I'll tell you it anyway. He told me that he'd played a one-day trial game in Melbourne. And so he had some experience, but he wanted to keep that on the down low. And so he sort of said it and then realized and was like, blah, 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 and like would talk about something else. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to keep that in my mind, just that he knows what he's doing a bit more than what he's coming across as. And so I was always slightly wary of him. And just in our conversations, I thought there was a lot more going on behind the scenes than what he was fronting with.
And he is very nice. He is very likable, and he hadn't played a bad game, so he would have been quite threatening. No. I would feel.
Absolutely, yeah. I felt like he would have done very well. Yeah. So I wanted him to go out over Ethan because if Ethan happened to get to the end, I felt like I could compete against an erratic game a little bit better than I could with Maddie, who's a more social game, which is what I was playing. So
that's true, though. We get to the next vote, and Ethan's doing everything he can to survive. And you're telling us at Tribal, you're telling us to the camera that what Ethan's producing to you in terms of his last-ditch efforts to survive is actually just solidifying why he needs to go. You're telling us that he's actually quite convincing. Was that how you were feeling? That this story was coming up with that was actually making you think shit, he's actually, I wouldn't want to go to the end with him.
I didn't want to go to the end with him. Like, I didn't. I wanted Matt to go before Ethan, because I felt like Matt was a bigger threat against me than Ethan, but I didn't want to go to the end with either of them. So, so Ethan going next made the most logic to me. And everyone else had my back. Like, I felt like from the Shane vote, to be honest, that I felt like I was gonna make it to the end from that point, to be honest. Like, or like if I played it well, like it wasn't just a guaranteed thing, but I felt like I was insulated enough and I had connections on either side enough to sort of make it there at least. So I felt like if we voted off Jazz or Michelle, then I feel like the boys would have actually stuck to that. Like, I feel like that was their only way to go there. And I feel like I was more insulated in that direction because they would have targeted Ethan being more, they would have targeted Luke because of his challenge threat before they would have targeted me. So I felt protected by that. And then I felt protected the other side too, which is what ended up playing out.
And let's sort of go to the next phase here. You've got a final four, and you do end up voting out Luke, and he gives you the bloody permission to do it, which I'm sure made it easier. But you know, and it's an emotional vote. I think you're surprised. It's so emotional. I think that your experience with Brisbane Survivor, where basically everyone, like a bunch of people knew each other, didn't seem to be that emotional making these moves. So maybe that's part of why you were so surprised with how emotional you were feeling. But how early were you lying to yourself? Did you always know that Luke had to go? And unless if he got immune at Final Four, then so be it. What happens, happens. You'll give him that chance. But if he's not immune there, he's going. When did you make up your mind that that's when you'd have to cut him?
Yeah, again, the end game was all about having options. So I knew that was an option. I knew taking him was an option. And I thought...
Well, what was taking him an option? Like, I don't know if taking him was ever an option. Like, really?
No, as in I could... It wouldn't be for me. Like, as in it wasn't ideal for me for that to happen. Yeah. But if that was to happen... they would have, if they had to make the decision, I feel like they would have taken me with them. So as in like,
I think Luke was always in a scenario that unless he wins the final immunity, no one's taking him. I don't think there's a group of 4 people he could get in a scenario with where he has to win, doesn't have to win that final immunity. Yeah. So, and you're probably, if he's getting taken, you're probably not getting voted out because something weird's going on. Someone else is randomly the biggest target. It's just, you always probably knew though that to win, if he didn't win that immunity, you were going to have to vote him out because you could have pushed for a draw. Like if you wanted to, you could have sent him to a 2-on-2 fire making, which he probably wins, and then he's in the more like convincing at the end. So obviously it's a bad game move.
Yeah.
But when in your head did you decide? I can't. Like if he doesn't win immunity, I'm going to be voting him out there. I'm not going to make it a 2-2.
Like it was definitely made clear at the Ethan vote, like at that round of voting, that was going to have to be the case if he didn't win immunity. So I knew it then. Again, I was taking round by round of like options and like thinking through things, but I knew at that point that was the best option for me. Let's finish this Matt and Ethan vote out at this point. Leave the 4 of us. The ideal would be Michelle and Jazz and me. If Luke wins immunity, then I have to work out what to do.
I like to postulate a lot that Michelle's winning move would have been to idle you out and save Ethan. Would you have ever forgiven her if she'd done that move to you?
Oh, for sure. Like as in... absolutely. Yeah, I think Michelle's great. I would have definitely, that would have been so cool. I would have appreciated that as a survivor moment. I would have felt it because I'm competitive. Like I've said, I'm competitive and I wanted to win at that point, but I think if I was to sit back and go, wow, like that's so cool that happened. So
particularly she then goes on to beat Luke in the final challenge. Then what a story she's got at the final trial.
Totally. Like, that's what dreams are made of at that point. Yeah, definitely. So that would have been cool.
We go to the final tribal, and look, I said a little bit flippantly during the coverage, I don't know, around an hour and a half in, that I don't think any of the final tribal speeches are that good. I do appreciate it's a long day. I think your issue is you're bordering on too humble for most of it, and that's why a bunch of these people like TK and Christy are trying to give you layups. Was that a deliberate strategy to not want to have that humility, but maybe it went a bit far?
Yeah, I wanted Final Tribal to be consistent with the game that I'd played. And I wanted to try and set a tone that people would attach to what they had experienced with me throughout the day. And so I definitely did. I was cautious of that. What I think I misunderstood was how much I assumed people knew already. I felt like I was just reminding people, whereas I was telling people for the first time. And I feel like that's the biggest piece of advice I'd give to anyone who plays any of these games is treat everyone on the jury like they have no idea what you did, because you're the hero of your own story and no one else saw that. So, so I'd say be bolder about it. And that's like watching it back, I'm like, oh, like I think that I wanted to intentionally set the tone, like I said, but I wish I pushed a bit harder on some things. Absolutely. But I also wanted to, I wanted to create an environment where we could bounce off each other a little bit more. Like if Jazz or Michelle were to come out fighting a bit more, I would have tried to have stepped up to that, but I didn't feel like I needed to.
I think you did balance that right. You don't want to be, if they're at that level, you don't want to be at this level. It's too much. But I think you've hit the nail on the head. You were just assuming people knew what you'd done, and you therefore didn't need to go hard with the storytelling about it. But you're right. Everything we've heard from Danny and other people on the jury was very much they did need to hear that. They didn't have this perception of you that was obviously clear to us as a viewer that of the strong game you'd played.
Yeah.
Christy gives you an absolute layup where she wants you to talk about the role you had in voting out everyone that was there. And you sort of flub it a bit where you're like, I don't know. And then she's like, well, just this person.
Yeah.
Did you know were you trying to not go hard there? Surely you knew you voted them all out.
I knew majority of them. To be honest, that's the question that where I felt like my brain failed me. I felt like I was literally at that point, I was crumbling. I was I felt like even in the last challenge, the challenge that Michelle won with the eggs and the memory thing, I was first out. I was my brain is gone. I can't even remember the colored eggs, and let alone trying to piece together a coherent story. So yeah, I did genuinely have trouble for a moment of being how do I express this in a way that shows people that I was involved in these votes. So yeah, she definitely, that helped me. Absolutely. 110% did that help me.
I think that must have been a huge selling point for the jury who, as we just discussed, might not have been as clear as the involvement you had in all of the moves. And of course, the one differentiating point for Michelle, because she did pretty much play the same game, is you left her out of the Joseph vote. Was it pre-tribal or during tribal that you realized, actually, this is my key point of differentiation from Michelle, and I need to put a bit of effort into that discussion? Because you do start then using it a bit in the tribal council.
Yeah, no, it was, I knew it beforehand. I knew that, I knew that was a significant vote for a number of different things. And I feel like I didn't really sell that vote at all. Really, that was the most pivotal thing that I should have built my whole game around, is the merge, and I didn't. And so, I was very aware of Michelle not voting. the same way as like for Joseph. But yeah, so what was your question? Yeah, I was very aware of it.
Yeah, you knew it and you planned it. Okay. And the other big one you did, which you immediately disarmed Jazz by making her the final piece in your puzzle. The language there is quite deliberate, or it feels deliberate, to depower her. She didn't come from the edge and then build a network and survive. You brought her in. You made her your confidant. You made her your extra piece, and then use that to your advantage. And the way, look, to be fair, the way she then speaks feeds into that story as well. But was that a deliberate play to disarm her story?
Yeah, I'd thought, like, I think we had 10 minutes before final tribal council. And the biggest thing that I was thinking about was, how do I communicate my relationship with Jazz? Like, what wording am I going to use for that? Because I feel like it was mutually beneficial for us. Like, I can say this out of the game now, like, I needed another person and she also needed me. And I genuinely did feel trust with her though. So that wasn't a lie. That wasn't fake. I thought she was an awesome person. But I was like, in this moment, I don't want to belittle her, and I don't, because that's not what people will respect. They won't respect that. I could put on an act and be all like macho and being like, I brought Jazz in and like blah, 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 blah. And it just wouldn't have worked, and I wouldn't have done it anyway. So I settled on the puzzle piece because I really felt like I was just talking about my story, as in Jazz could talk about it from a completely different way. But from my perspective, Jazz was not only the puzzle piece in terms of strategy, she was also a puzzle piece in terms of socially and, and connectedness and insulation as well. So I felt like it covered like lots of different things that didn't like drag anyone down. I didn't want to do that.
And it did. It's just masterful wording. Have you ever seen the film The Conversation?
I don't think so.
It's a film from like the 70s. It's got this great twist at the end. I probably can spoil a twist of a film that's 50 years old, but about how the language that they hear is, he'll kill us if he has the chance, right? And all this thing about how this guy's going to get them, whatever. And the big twist is they're actually trying to get him, and then they replay the conversation, and there's an emphasis that's slightly tweaked in the film, but you're not supposed to realize that. It's like, he'd kill us if he had the chance. And that slight language means they're going to kill him. It's just that slight language expression difference. And again, it's not Jazz was the final piece in the puzzle, our puzzle. It's the final piece in my puzzle. And I think that language choice was so perfect to do the things you want to do, to not belittle her, but to depower her, to make her a character in your story. Not she's a side character, she's a supporting character in your story. And whether you meant to do it or not, that choice of words, I think, would have been so powerful in the story that you told. She still got a lot of votes.
Yeah.
When the votes are being read and it's 3-3-3, you're excited, you grab their hands, you're like, wow, this is amazing. Like, did you think you were going to win, and then all those votes are coming in and you're like, what the fuck is going on? Or did you always feel like, nah, I've got this?
It was so hard to tell, like I tried to do the numbers a little bit of like trying to work it out, but I was like, I gave up on that pretty quick. Cause I'm like, I literally have zero idea. And so I just was like, I was hopeful. Like, I definitely went into final tribal hopeful that I would get votes and that I could win. Like that was definitely in my brain. It's like, this is actually within reach for you. So go for it. I didn't go for it as hard as I needed to, but I obviously did enough. And so I think when the votes were being read out and it was 3-3-3, I think my heart just like sank then a little bit, in the sense of like, oh, like, this is good. Okay, I'm having fun now as a Survivor fan. This is cool. Like, this is actually a really nice moment.
That's what you say in the real times.
Yeah. So, and I grabbed their hands and I'm like, whatever happens here, I'm legitimately okay with. This is good. And so, that's how I genuinely felt.
I made it to the end. I'm not a 0 vote finalist. No one's a 0 vote finalist. That's nice.
And it's
and not
fun.
even one
Like,
vote,
that's a
not even
fun
two
way
votes, 3 votes. You know,
yeah,
that's a lot of
yeah,
votes.
and that's a fun way to like for a final tribal to go. So I was
No,
happy.
no one walks away from final tribal having got 3 votes feeling bad about themselves.
Absolutely, yeah. I hope not. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I think it was a cool moment. So, and I definitely never saw Michelle and Jazz as like, I saw them as like they were so strong and like they played such a good game. And
I don't think
watching it back,
anyone at all on the viewing would perceive them as
no,
goats. I didn't think anyone was seeing them as goats. I don't think anyone used the goat word. It just
no.
wasn't there.
Yeah,
No one was really a goat going into the final merge at all.
literally, I was like, it was wild. Like finding myself playing with these people. They are cool people. Like all of this whole cast is like a bunch of incredible people, and I was like stoked to be able to say that we could like play the game together.
Thank you so much, Sam, for coming on. That's a great place to end it. This was a great conversation about your win, which is a fantastic win, a really strong win. What a year you had last year with the release of your magnum opus, Brisbane Survivor, that you'd carefully crafted over 2.5 years. Also, your big victory coming out. Your debutante ball reveal and presentation to the Survivor community from this guy. Who's this guy? To like,
Yeah.
you know, your own season, a winner, and everyone who I haven't met you in real life yet. I'm sure I will at some point. But everyone who meets you says you're just the absolute most lovely, nice person. And I think it came through in this game while also playing a very strategic and social game. I'm sure you're proud of it, and you should be. A very fitting winner to a very good season. I don't know how I can gush about you more, but it's all well deserved. And thank you very much for coming on to the chat to talk about this. It was great to get your insights on such a strong winning game.
I appreciate it, and just like thanks for like highlighting all these games, man. Like I don't know how you do it, to be honest. Like there's so much like time involved in this. It's wild. So just thank you so much, because yeah, you're amazing. You're making so many people's dreams come true in terms of just like chatting about their experience and like getting to relive it and stuff. So just thank you so much, CK, and everyone who's involved. It's been awesome.
Thank you, Sam. I really appreciate that. It's good to be able to fill the void. It's been a year since we've had a new season come out. My goal was to do all of these before, I didn't know when anything was coming out, but I did plan on doing this in 1 year. But there was just times when it was too much for me to re-binge the seasons, and then I needed extra time to watch them. So it's been a bit delayed, and it means that the final 3 will get revealed sometime down the track. Who knows? But the good thing about the final 3 is they're all so recent that and it doesn't really matter about who wins or second or third. It really doesn't matter. What mattered was about giving this time and respect to some of the seasons that didn't get this sort of coverage. I know Sydney did when it was on, but the older seasons didn't get this coverage, and it's about going back on them and really getting into that with those people, the creators and the players. So I'm not so fussed that we might not get to 3-2-1 for a long time if a bunch of new content is coming out. I'm actually really excited about some new content. I do appreciate your words, but sometimes this has been a bit of a grind in places. Not that I haven't enjoyed it, but as you say, it's making the time, it's watching the episodes, and but I'm a person who doesn't quit. If I've said I'm going to do something, I'm going to finish it. And it's not. I love doing the shows, but sometimes rewatching the seasons and making all the notes can be a bit of an effort.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And yeah, we're about to get flooded with Survivor. So US Survivor's just around the corner. Survivor Canberra is around the corner. So excited.
They're going to be basically at the same time. You're going to have Survivor US 47 on Thursday nights, and you're going to have Canberra on Friday nights. And then the official on-brand podcast, The Backbenchers, is back. That will be on Mondays. And I'll be making my little quips about it, as I always do. But they do good work, and they're worth watching. And then we will be on Wednesday. So the Canberra Lucky Ducks get double coverage. No one else gets this. And frankly, don't do it because I like being a sole voice. But that's what they get, and that's great. And I love it. It's great to have the double support there. Really looking forward to covering it. Thank you so much for coming on, Sam. Thank you for everyone that watched live. 2 in a week is a lot. So for those of you that were on both, much, much love. We will be back next week with the tea party. with Annabelle, with Ethan and Michelle, and to be confirmed, Leah possibly can't make it work out. So we're investigating some other opportunities of who could be on the tea party, and then more coverage to come. So I look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you to everyone who's watched live. Thank you to everyone that listens to this after the fact. Whenever you listen to your podcast, we really appreciate your support. I will see you next week when we introduce the tea party.
Thanks, everyone.